This video is for people with no experience who just want to photograph using a DSLR through a telescope. I have an Orion short tube 80mm refractor here. It's achromatic. It's on the Celestron Nexstar 4SE mount. We're going to be doing single exposures, no stacking, no layering, no filtering, very little editing in Photoshop, and I'm going to show you the results that I got with that. So first off, we'll talk about equipment list, and this is a Google search on astrophotography. What you see here is like amateur to above telescope setups. There's a lot of money in this, folks. There's thousands of dollars in these auto guiders and these tripods you see and that sort of thing, and that's just not realistic for most people. But we're not going to get into that too much. A lot of guys use filters, let in certain parts of wavelengths of light, and they do a lot of stacking and layering in Photoshop. Post-edit work is ridiculous. There's a lot to this. This is a science. It takes a lot of skill and experience learning, but chances are you own something that looks similar to this. And this is the retail cheaper end of telescopes. It's what most people have. It's what most people can afford. And that's generally what we're going to be talking about. Your base minimum equipment, of course, is a telescope. You're going to need a DSLR camera because that's what we're discussing. This is the 60D. That's what I have. You need a T adapter, and this is going to go into the eyepiece hole of your telescope. You're going to have a T ring specific to your brand of camera, and that allows you to attach the camera to the T adapter. Shutter release cable is almost an absolute must. If you have to put your hands on the camera, you're going to introduce vibration and not get a good shot. Whatever telescope you choose, the field of view is really important. This is a representation from AstroView of the 80mm refractor that I'm using of the Orion Nebula. If you have a higher F number instrument, then you're going to have a whole lot greater magnification, but it's also going to be harder to locate objects because of the field of view, so that's something to consider. And this is your typical cheaper low-end telescope mount. And the really important thing here is you can get away with something cheap as long as it's sturdy enough to hold your system. By the time you add your camera and all, you're adding a lot of weight. And here's a live view of the moon through my telescope setup. And what you're seeing is just me getting ready to take a shot. It's very low ISO due to the brightness of the moon. Now, I actually shouldn't have had that on Bob. I should have had it on 1/1000th of a second, that sort of thing, for exposure time. Here I am in 10 times magnification to get into focus so that I know when I take my shot it's a decent one. That's the trick that everybody uses. And this is the resulting image. This is the 60D 100 ISO. I think it was close to a second. Did a little bit of editing and contrast and that sort of thing. When I cropped it, this was the final image that I got. It's not too bad. It's not great, but it's a good starting image. When you're focusing on stars, you're going to want to go 10 times like that also. So this is the star Alcone. I think that's pronounced right. Anyway, it's in Pleiades. It's right beside Atlas. I know how to pronounce that. So I just went into 10 times magnification. You can see the vibration from me focusing on the telescope. Exposure is just under 2 seconds. That's me hitting the shutter cord there. It's taking a dark frame now. Okay, that's the resulting image. Not really detailed, and you can see that it was done with the achromatic refractor. It got trouble with the halos of blues and reds and planetary and that sort of thing when you use it. But here's the image in the PC. Then I ran it through Photoshop and just tried to bring out some of the nebulosity, just some simple clarity and contrast edits and that sort of thing. The temperature's all wrong because it's a little too blue and that sort of thing. But here we're seeing Orion. This is a 7-second exposure at 3200 ISO. And you're going to have to do all this. If you're not tracking, you're going to have to do this really quick because the stars are going to start trailing on you and they're going to have lines in the sky in your image. Especially through a telescope, the more you magnify, the less time you have to take a shot. The next shot I show is NGC 6716 open cluster in Sagittarius. It's got a apparent magnitude of 6.9. I'll give you an idea of what an f5 80mm refractor looks like through a DSLR, a non-full frame DSLR I should say. And here I've cropped it so you can see it a little closer. Not a very interesting open cluster for most people, but I took it as a frame of reference here. It was available that night that I took the other shots. We'll talk about the Stargazer's Handbook, the definitive field guide to the night sky. Now, this is one of many great books for reference to deep sky objects, constellations, that sort of thing. There's a lot of them out there. I'm just using this as a reference. I showed you Pleiades in a single exposure, heavily light polluted area. This is a professional photograph here. You can just see how beautiful that can be. Probably a whole lot larger instrument, I'm sure, and stacking software using that sort of thing. Got a placeholder here for Orion. You could see a really big difference here. This is people see images like this and I'm not quite sure that they know what goes into them. There's a lot of work to this, guys. There's if you want to get serious about it, then you're gonna have to look into upgrading your tripod, your system. You need to be able to track stars. Good entry level way to do that is with a German equatorial mount. It's motorized. It's a nice starting point. From there you can learn a whole lot more and that sort of thing. But just using that as a reference, people often get confused with what they're capable of. This video is about, just getting yourself out there and taking a few shots and seeing whether you like it or not, and then whether you want to get into doing it seriously and pursuing it and studying it. So to just get started, I think foremost important thing is that you have a sturdy mount. It can hold the load of the equipment you're using. You need to know that you need to limit your exposure times below 10 seconds, definitely in most cases. Higher the ISO the better. And you can take shots like this. It's not a great shot. It's not a professional shot, but it's something that might keep your interest and get you involved. And from there you can learn more, and you can upgrade your mount, upgrade your telescope, and try some of the amateur to advanced techniques. Spend a little bit more money as you go. But the important thing is not to be discouraged from what you see professionals doing. Like I said, that's the science. There's a lot of work to it. There's a lot of layering techniques. There's multiple exposures. There's tracking. There's expensive equipment. There's a science to this. This isn't daytime photography. But you can get out there and you can take you some single exposures to a telescope and probably do a lot better editing than I did here, and get you some nice photos and enjoy the night sky, enjoy the universe. It's where we live. There's a lot of beautiful things to see out there, and hopefully this is an encouraging video. That's mainly what I want to do. And there's not too many videos that guys post where the work is below amateur and just showing the bare minimum like this. I hope this helps somebody and encourages them to get started, and if I can answer any questions, I'd love to. Feel free to ask them in the comment section. And I hope you guys have plenty of clear skies and just get out and enjoy it. That's the most important thing. Enjoy the universe. Have a good day.